Welcome back to Simple Stats for STEM. In this video, I want to show how to test your data for normality. And before we can run any statistics on our data, we need to make sure that it's normal data. And what that means is that it is clustered around the center or the mean, the average. It falls in a nice bell-shaped curve. A certain percentage of the data falls within a measurement we call standard deviation. And so what I've done here is I've created some values for sleep, measurement of hours of sleep per night, and the measurement of a student's GPA. I've done the calculations here for mean and standard deviation. The formula for mean in Google Sheets is average, and then you select the column, and then standard deviation, similar to that in that you select the column. The formula you want is STDEVP, which is standard deviation of the population. So I've done that already for both the sleep and for the GPA. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my data, sleep, and I'm going to categorize it into bars for a histogram. So let's take a quick look at what we're going to have when we're done. And that is, it's going to look similar to like a vertical column chart, but it's going to be more like what we want to actually be looking at as a histogram, and that it's going to put the frequency of these sleep measurements into groups, and then we're going to put them on one graph to see the frequency count. So a histogram gives us some indication of how that data is spread out in clusters. So these are sometimes called bins or bars. So I'm going to create several of those. So for my sleep, what I'm going to do is I could go down this list and I could say, okay, there's 6.8 that would fall into this category right here, because this goes up to 7, so it's 6.5 to 7, so I could put a 1 there for that one. Then I could say, okay, 7.27, that goes up to 7.5, so that falls in that bin, and I could go do that, and that, be a fine way to get my frequency. But what is easier is if I just do a formula for that, and I've put the formula up here above in red text, and it's equals, and I'll type frequency and select the frequency distribution function. And then all I have to do is select my data set, which is this sleep area right here. And then I have to tell it what classes to put it in. In this case, it's these bins or bars, also called classes. I'll highlight those. And then I'll close that, and I will hit enter. And it tells me how many pieces of data are in each of those bars. Now, I selected the number of bars for a reason. The mean on sleep is 6.39, it's about 7. So I want to have about as many bars on either side of the mean as I can. So the mean is right in here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this side. So I want to have about the same number on each side of the mean. Now, this data is now in histogram form. I could actually go ahead and do that and get an idea of what it's going to look like. I would want a combo chart. And I'm going to let the column G be the labels. That's the bins. So that's what my histogram is kind of starting to look like. Looks like most of my data is toward the middle. And so that's good. But what I want to do is I want to be able to compare the data that I have to what we would consider a normal curve. And so to do that, I'm going to have to use another function called normDist. That's the normal distribution. So I'm going to put in that formula, normDist, and then that's the normal distribution function. This is a formula that tells me what these values could be based on my bar, or my bin heights or values rather. So for this first one, I'm going to put in 4. Actually, I'm going to highlight this cell. And then I'm going to hit comma, and then I need the mean of this data set, which I've already done right here. So I'm just going to hit that. And I don't want that to change each time. So I'm going to hit F4 so that doesn't change when I drag it down here in a minute. Or you can just put in your $ there. And then it wants the standard deviation. So I'll hit that bin. And again, I'll do F4, lock that. And then the last thing here is false. That is for the cumulative normal distribution. I'm just going to say false on that. And then I'll close that up. And then what this does as I drag it down, it tells me if this set were normal, then I can expect these values in that set. Now, these values are obviously much different from these, and so what I want to do is I want to scale these to get them on kind of an equal plane. And a rule of thumb is to multiply your normal distribution function times the number of pieces of data you have, which in this case is 20. So I'm going to take right here, I'm going to create a little equation, just say equals, and I'm going to take this cell and I'm going to multiply, so shift 8 for an asterisk. I'm going to multiply that value by 20. So that's going to get me, and I'm going to drag that down, that's going to get me a little bit closer to having these values at least be similar in their size and shape. So now I'm ready to go ahead and create a graph, a histogram, that's going to show my, my histogram for my sleep and then compare it also to the normal curve. So for this graph, I want to have these two columns right here, and then I'm going to have to hold down Control because I want this normal curve column as well. Drag down there. There's the 3 columns that I want for my histogram. Just slide over here just a little bit, and then let's click on Insert Chart. It's going to be a little bit messy here until we get it kind of set up. So the first thing we want to do is we want a combo chart, which is this one right here, combo chart. And there's 3 series on here, so let's clean that up a little bit. I'm going to tell it to use column G as labels. As my bins, my bars. So I'm going to let those just be the labels. You'll see those down at the bottom there. Those are my bar values. And then here are my values for my sleep frequencies. And then this is the normal curve. If this was a normal data set, it should fall generally under that curve. So let's clean this up just a little bit more. And we'll do that by going over here to Customize. The first thing I'm going to do is underneath Chart Style, I'm going to hit Smooth, and that'll smooth out that normal curve there for me a little bit. And then there's several other things I can do I can put labels on here. I'll show a couple of those underneath Chart and Axis. I will do the, I'm going to do the chart title. Let's put in something like sleep histogram, just to kind of give that a title there, and I can make that bold, make that look real pretty. Then I'm going to go down here to the series, and what I want to do is I don't want this to apply to all of them, so I'm just going to choose my sleep histogram bars, and I want to go ahead and show the data labels in there. And those are nice because it shows how many occurrences there are in each of these bars. There are 5 pieces of data falling in that 6.5 bar and 5 in here, so that kind of gives me a little bit more information there, which is nice. And then let's see, let's continue down here underneath the legend. We can play with that a little bit. The legend as it is good. Blue bars or sleep histogram, normal curve, I'm okay with that one. On the horizontal axis, I'm going to go ahead and put actually, yeah, I'm going to put, that's not the one I want. Actually, what I want to do is go up here to titles, and I'm going to label my horizontal axis title. I'm going to go ahead and just to make that clear. To make that clear, what I'm talking about on the horizontal axis, I'm going to talk. That's going to be sleep, and I'll make that nice there. And then the vertical axis, I will let that be. That was my. That is the. That's my sleep, and then on the left-hand column, that is my. I could say hours, or I could say several different things on that. So I could have a couple different labels there, but that just kind of gives you an idea of how to go ahead and start making that that normal curve. So that gives us an idea of what our data set looks like and how it compares to what would be considered normal. And this data is, it's more or less clustered toward the center. It's not perfectly normal, but it's getting pretty close, so we're pretty happy with it. This is going to be valuable to us because before we can show any kind of statistical analysis, we have to show our data is normal. And so I've shown how to do that here for the sleep. Now you can go ahead and go through the GPA and do the same thing for that one. And then maybe in my next video, I'll show how that one is done as well.